The Thompson family cherished a special tradition, gathering on the third day of the Lunar New Year for a grand reunion. This beloved custom had been upheld for over a decade.
Relieved another year, Martha. Look at how our family has grown.
Cheerful indeed, George. It warms my heart to see everyone here.
In the earlier years, the family would gather at George's home, enjoying the festive atmosphere. The kitchen would be bustling with Martha, her daughter Sarah, and daughters-in-law Emily and Olivia preparing delightful dishes.
Cheerful, pass me the soy sauce, Olivia. This dish needs a bit more flavor.
Friendly, here you go, Sarah. Let's make this meal unforgettable.
Meanwhile, George, his eldest son John, his son-in-law Michael, and his youngest son David would chat happily in the living room, sipping tea.
Cheerful. Dad, remember that time we tried making dumplings ourselves? What a mess. Laughing, oh yes, John. But the laughter made it all worthwhile.
The family expanded over the years. John's daughter, Emily, Sarah's daughter, Sophia, and David's daughter, Lily, would gather and whisper about their lives and dreams.
Whispering, Sophia, did you hear about Emily's new boyfriend?
Whispering, yes, Lily. She seems so happy.
As the years passed, the family grew even more. Granddaughters found love and started their own families, bringing in a fourth generation. This year, the family decided to celebrate at a restaurant owned by Sarah, as the elderly couple preferred not to cook anymore.
Excited, everyone, let's head to Dad's house first to pay our respects.
The family gathered at George's home, exchanging red envelopes, a reversal from their childhood days.
Cheerful, here's your red envelope, Grandpa. Wishing you and Grandma good health.
Relieved. Thank you, Emily. Your thoughtful wishes mean the world to us.
After the greetings, they played a lively game of mahjong with George, who only indulged in this game once a year.
Excited? Looks like I'm winning again.
Cheerful, you've still got it, Dad.
Martha served golden, crispy spring rolls and sweet osmanthus rice balls, delighting everyone with her culinary skills.
Friendly enjoy, everyone. These are made with love.
By 4 in the afternoon, the family drove to the restaurant, where George and Martha took seats of honor.
Cheerful. Let's toast to great-grandfather and great-grandmother. Happy New Year.
In unison, Happy New Year, great-grandfather and great-grandmother. Wishing you good health and long life.
Shy. Great-grandfather, great-grandmother, live a long life.
The elderly couple's faces lit up with joy as they received the heartfelt wishes. They then enjoyed a sumptuous meal, savoring the lively atmosphere.
Excited, time for some photos. Smile, everyone.
With glasses raised and laughter echoing, they celebrated another year of love and togetherness. One of China's 4 great classical novels, Dream of the Red Chamber, tells the love and sorrow-filled story of its protagonists, Emily Thompson and James, whose tale has been passed down for centuries. The story begins with comedy and ends in tragedy, blending joy and sorrow in a way that moves readers to tears. The book contains a poem.
All the absurd words on paper, a handful of bitter tears. Very one says the author is crazy, but who can understand the taste within?
Dream of the Red Chamber has been adapted into plays and films, frequently broadcast on television, becoming a beloved piece of art among the Chinese people. Emily Thompson enters the Jia household, where James showers her with affection. Despite the household being filled with beautiful women, James falls in love with Emily at first sight, deeply and passionately.
Emily, you are the only one for me. I vow never to marry anyone else.
However, due to some interference, Emily ends up being replaced by another, leading to James mourning her loss.
How could this happen? Emily, my love, where are you?
In the end, James's love is in vain, and he retreats into a life of solitude. In my novel, the Emily Thompson mentioned is not the Lin Dayu of Dream of the Red Chamber. Instead, there are three Emily Thompsons. The eldest is Emily Thompson, the second is Sophia Thompson, and the third is Lily Thompson. Why are they called three sisters instead of three siblings? It is because these three girls are cousins, yet they all share the same surname, Thompson, which is a coincidence. The story begins with the Thompson family's great-grandpa and great-grandma, who had two sons and a daughter. These three children grew up, got married, and had children, all of whom were girls.
Our daughter is so elegant and pure. Let's name her Emily Thompson.
2 years later, George Thompson's daughter, Sarah Thompson, also had a girl who appeared very quiet.
Since her cousin is named Emily, let's continue the tradition of using literary names. She will be Sophia Thompson.
How did she also end up with the surname Thompson? Naturally, her father, Michael Thompson, shared the same surname but was not related to Sarah. They were colleagues working in the district government.
You can't write Thompson without two Thompsons. You two are a perfect match and should get married.
The youngest son, David Thompson, married Olivia Miller, an engineer at the same factory. They also had a daughter, whose fair skin earned her the name Lily Thompson. Emily Thompson, Sophia Thompson, and Lily Thompson are referred to as the three Emily Thompsons because three young men fell deeply in love with them, each considering their beloved as their one and only.
Emily is the love of my life.
Sophia is my everything.
Lily is my one and only.
The Lin Dayu of Dream of the Red Chamber was an imagined beauty of ancient times. Emily Thompson, Sophia Thompson, and Lily Thompson are real-life beauties, visible and tangible, making the three young men fall madly in love with them. In ancient China, the four great beauties were Shishir, Wang Xiaojun, Jiachun, and Yang Guifei. These women were renowned for their unparalleled beauty, each with a legendary story.
Shishir was so beautiful that it was said she could make fish sink. Imagine that, washing silk by the river, and the fish, feeling ashamed, would sink to the bottom of the river.
Wang Xiaojun, on her journey to marry the Xiongnu chieftain, played her lute, and the geese flying south were so captivated by her beauty and music that they forgot to flap their wings and fell to the ground.
Jiaochun's beauty was said to make the moon hide. When she prayed to the moon at midnight, the moon goddess, feeling outshone, would hide behind the clouds.
And Yang Guifei's beauty was known as shaming flowers. She was so stunning that even the flowers in the palace garden would fold their leaves in shame.
These ancient beauties, including Emily Thompson, were all extraordinarily beautiful, but their fates were often tragic and unfulfilled. The three Thompson sisters, Emily Thompson, Sophia Thompson, and Lily Thompson, are also stunning beauties.
Our beauty can't be directly compared to that of ancient times, right? Different eras have different standards and ideals of beauty.
Modern beauty encompasses not only physical appearance but also inner beauty, behavior, and talent.
With good fortune, we can achieve our dreams through hard work.
Let's start with the eldest sister, Emily Thompson, born in the 1980s.
From birth, it was clear I would grow up to be a beauty, thanks to our parents' genes.
Her father was tall with big eyes and a high nose, and her mother was also very attractive. So naturally, Emily turned out beautiful.
Her parents invested in a piano and hired a teacher to cultivate her musical talent. She progressed through the piano grades, reaching level 9.
Not to become a pianist, but to develop my intelligence. Playing the piano requires coordination of the brain, eyes, and hands.
The second sister, Sophia Thompson, also born in the 1980s, 3 years younger than Emily, is another beauty.
I inherited our mother's good looks. Though Emily and I are cousins, we looked almost like twins.
Sophia also started playing the piano from a young age, reaching level 9. Her fingers would dance across the keys, filling the room with beautiful music.
The youngest sister, Lily Thompson, born in the 1990s, 2 years younger than Sophia, is also a beauty.
My mother, a petite and elegant engineer, gave birth to me, who looked like a fairy tale princess with my fair skin and delicate features.
The 3 sisters share a common trait: they all have high noses and long hair. When together, they could easily be mistaken for triplets. When Emily graduated from middle school, Sophia from junior high, and Lily from 4th grade, the 3 girls, aged 17, 14, and 12 respectively, were gradually maturing. They began to understand social norms and even started contemplating their futures. Let's start with Emily's situation. Her parents ran a clothing retail business, initially setting up a counter in a small mall where business was good. As their business grew, they rented a storefront and eventually opened several chain stores, with up to 7 or 8 outlets in the city. The couple was extremely busy. As their business flourished and their income increased, the family's financial situation improved significantly. However, Emily's education and daily life were largely neglected. Meals were irregular, and she didn't feel the warmth of family or parental affection. This lack of attention, however, fostered her ability to manage herself and live independently.
Mom, Dad, I also want to study abroad, attend high school, and then university.
That's great, Emily. We think it's a wonderful idea.
The next question was which country. After some discussion, they decided on Australia. John Thompson, Emily's father, showed great determination and resourcefulness, contacting friends and acquaintances to arrange for her to study at a high school in Sydney.
John, are we really letting Emily study abroad?
Are you worried about the cost?
It's not about the money. I'm concerned she's too young, and sending a young girl alone to a foreign country makes me uneasy.
Mom, I'm 17 now, practically an adult. I can take care of myself.
A mother always worries about her daughter being so far away.
Mom, you've been so busy with the business that I've learned to live independently. Trust me, I'll be fine.
Finally, the decision was made. Emily wanted to say goodbye to her 2 younger sisters. The day before her departure, the 3 sisters gathered at a restaurant owned by Sarah, Sophia's mother. Sarah hosted the gathering in a private room. The sisters arrived early, sharing emotional farewells. They hugged and cried together.
I'm going abroad to study. You 2 must study hard, listen to Mom and Dad, and visit Grandpa and Grandma often. Buy them some treats if you can.
Don't worry, sister. I'll study hard, listen to our parents, and visit Grandma and Grandpa often. You study hard too and take care of yourself. Write to us and call often.
I'll miss you, big sister. I'll feel lonely without you.
Lily, you still have me.
The 3 sisters found it hard to part. When the other guests arrived, they celebrated with drinks, offering their best wishes. The next day, as Emily prepared to board her flight, an unexpected scene unfolded at the airport. A young man appeared to see her off. He was James Smith, a classmate of Emily's, 2 years older and also about to study abroad in Europe. The 2 had secretly started a romantic relationship. So, who was this young man? He was James Smith, a classmate of Emily Thompson from high school, 2 years older than her. He was also about to study abroad in Europe. The 2 young people had already privately established a romantic relationship. That day, Emily's father, mother, and 2 sisters, Sophia and Lily, went to the airport to see her off.
Emily, I'll handle your boarding procedures and checking your luggage.
Have you packed everything? Do you need anything else? Do you have enough money? Do you need more snacks for the journey? Call home as soon as you arrive. Daughter, I'll miss you so much when I can't see you.
Yes, Mom. I have everything I need. I'll call as soon as I land. Thank you.
Her two sisters had many things they wanted to share with her, so they pulled Emily aside, but in that moment, none of them knew what to say. The airport's waiting hall continuously broadcast flight information, announcing which flights were arriving and when others were departing. The flight to Australia was set to depart in an hour. At that moment, Emily seemed distracted, looking around for something.
Sister, why hasn't James arrived yet?
Lily didn't say anything but was equally anxious for her sister. Just then, James arrived at the waiting hall and approached Emily.
James, why are you so late? The plane is about to take off, and Emily was so worried.
Sorry, there was a traffic jam.
Emily, hurry up and have a private chat with him.
In the bustling waiting hall, people were busy with their own affairs. Emily pulled James to a quieter spot, where they stood facing each other.
James, I'm about to leave. When will we see each other again?
Emily, my mind is in chaos. The traffic jam made me so anxious. I had thought about what to say to you, but now I've forgotten everything.
You always have so much to say, but now you're at a loss for words. Time is short, so let's keep it brief. I'll be in Australia, and you'll be in Europe. How will we stay in touch?
Well,
here's an idea. Once you settle in Europe, write to Sophia, and she can relay your address to me. That way, we can stay in touch.
Why didn't I think of that? You're so clever.
All right, it's settled. We'll stick to our plan.
Okay. Should we tell our parents about our relationship now?
There's no time for that now. We'll discuss it later. As long as you stay true, I won't change my feelings.
I swear.
No need for that.
Emily covered his mouth with her hand. James, regardless of the place or time, pulled Emily into a tight embrace and kissed her passionately. Emily didn't push him away, she kissed him back with equal fervor.
Emily, Dad, and Mom are looking for you. It's time for your security check.
The young couple reluctantly let go, tears in their eyes, waving goodbye to each other. Emily Thompson did not push him away, she kissed her beloved James Smith passionately.
Emily, your parents are looking for you. It's time for your security check.
The young couple reluctantly broke their embrace, tears in their eyes as they waved goodbye. Emily Thompson left her parents, sister, and lover, boarding the plane. It was her first flight, and she couldn't quite describe the feeling.
It's like riding a high-speed elevator. My ears are blocked for a moment, but it's all good now.
Seated by the window, Emily gazed outside. The plane flew smoothly through layers of white clouds, creating a serene and comfortable atmosphere. After a while, she felt tired and began to doze off. Later, as lunchtime approached, flight attendants pushed carts down the aisle, serving meals to passengers.
Excuse me, miss. Here's your meal and drink.
Thank you very much.
Hungry, she eagerly enjoyed the in-flight meal, finding it quite tasty. Feeling refreshed after lunch, she struck up a conversation with the passenger next to her.
Are you also going to Australia?
Yes, I am. And you?
I'm also going to Australia.
Are you traveling alone?
Yes, just me.
You seem quite young.
Yes, I'm only 18.
Are you visiting relatives in Australia?
I don't have any relatives in Australia.
Then what brings you there? Work or study?
I'm going to study, attending high school.
Which city will you be studying in? Have you made arrangements?
My father has arranged everything for me. I'll be studying in Sydney. Are you traveling alone too?
My husband and I study and work in Sydney. I'm returning home to visit my parents.
How long have you been in Australia?
We've been in Australia for 4 or 5 years, studying and working. We'll graduate from university next year.
Will you return home after graduation, or stay in Australia?
We haven't decided yet. We'll see when the time comes. By the way, your parents must be quite trusting to let you travel alone to study abroad.
My father is very confident, but my mother is a bit worried and reluctant.
They exchanged names and hometowns, discovering that their parents knew each other. The conversation continued to flow naturally.
Have you sorted out your accommodation in Sydney?
Yes, I have.
Where will you be staying?
Emily handed over the address her father had arranged. The passenger looked at it and was surprised.
What a coincidence! My husband and I live with this family.
My father told me it's an elderly couple.
They run a breakfast business.
This is such a relief. I was worried about being alone in a foreign country, not knowing the language or the situation. Having you as a guide makes me feel much more at ease. My dad told me that this family is an elderly couple.
Yes, they run a morning pastry business. It's such a coincidence.
I was worried about being alone in Sydney, not knowing the language or the situation, and unsure about how to continue my studies. Now, with you as my guide, Anna, I feel much more at ease.
The two then discussed Sydney, the city, and the schools.
Let me introduce you to the landlady and the house where you will be staying.
This gave Emily a basic understanding of her destination before even arriving in Sydney, which greatly reassured her. The two chatted intermittently, and time flew by. Soon, the announcement came over the plane's speakers that they were about to land in Sydney. Passengers began to stir, retrieving their luggage from the overhead compartments and preparing to disembark.
Remember to collect your checked luggage after we deplane. Follow me, Emily.
Anna, I'll just follow you.
Though she said this, she wondered if following Anna might lead to any problems or if she might be deceived. However, she reasoned that once she left the airport, she wouldn't know her way around. Despite passing her English exams and TOEFL before leaving the country, she realized that communicating with native speakers might not be as easy. She decided to stay alert and be cautious. The two exited the airport together, where a man was waiting to pick them up.
Emily, this is my husband, Andrew. Andrew, this is Miss Emily, who has come to Sydney to study and will be staying at Mrs. Maria's house.
Mr. Brown, my name is Emily Thompson. I will be relying on you both for help in the future.
As she spoke, Emily thought about how her father had told her that a man named Henry Lee would be waiting for her at the airport with a letter from her father. But instead of Henry, Andrew had come to pick her up. What was going on? Emily scrutinized Andrew, feeling he looked familiar, as if she had seen him before. Wasn't he the younger brother of her high school teacher, Helen Brown? She had visited Helen's home, where Andrew had spoken to her and helped her with English. She had heard he went abroad. Could it be him? Andrew also looked at Emily, thinking she seemed familiar. Then he remembered, wasn't she one of his sister's students, Emily Thompson, often called Emily because she was even more beautiful than the character from Dream of the Red Chamber? Just then, Henry Lee arrived at the airport exit, and they recognized each other immediately.
Emily, here's the letter from your father.
Henry waved a letter and handed it to Emily.
Uncle Henry, thank you for coming to pick me up. You've worked hard.
Anna, Andrew, and Henry shook hands and chatted, revealing that they had all studied and worked in Sydney. Both Henry and Andrew had driven to the airport. Which car should Emily take? In the end, she got into Andrew's car.
Na Brown and Drew Brown were shaking hands and chatting with Henry Lee.
Henry, it's been ages. I can't believe we used to work together in Sydney.
Indeed, Anna. Those were the days, weren't they?
Henry Lee and Andrew Brown both drove to the airport.
Which car are you getting into, Emily?
Emily initially got into Andrew Brown's car, but then reconsidered and switched to Henry Lee's car.
Andrew, it's better if Emily rides with Henry. Let me move her luggage.
I'm sorry for the trouble, Anna.
The two cars drove out of the airport, one following the other.
Emily, why did you switch from Andrew's car to mine?
Uncle Henry, I noticed your car is newer, so.
I see.
Uncle Henry, now that I'm in Sydney, you'll help me with my living arrangements and studies, right?
Yes, I'll cover your accommodation and tuition fees.
My dad said he already gave you some money.
Yes, I'll take care of your first-year language studies, housing, and tuition. After that, you'll need to manage on your own for the next 2 years of formal studies.
My dad explained everything clearly.
Also, you'll need to handle your own meals and daily expenses during the first year.
I know, my dad gave me some dollars for that.
So, you'll be studying in Sydney for 3 years, which is essentially high school. We'll discuss university arrangements after that.
As they chatted, they soon arrived in Sydney's city centre. The car crossed the Sydney Harbour Bridge and made a few turns before stopping near the Sydney Opera House, in front of a small villa. Andrew's car arrived shortly after. Once parked, they all got out.
Emily, from now on, call me Mr. Lee or Henry, not Uncle. Do I look that old?
I'm just a young girl, so I'm used to calling older people uncle. But I'll call you Henry from now on.
Emily, this is Mrs. Maria's house where you'll be staying. Let's get out.
It was around 4 p.m., and Mrs. Maria was waiting at the villa's gate. Henry, Andrew, and Anna helped unload Emily's luggage.
Mrs. Maria, this is Emily.
Emily, you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Maria.
Mrs. Maria led Emily into the villa's living room. The villa had 2 floors. The first floor had a large living room, kitchen, bathroom, storage room, and garage. The second floor had several rooms. One large room was for Mrs. Maria and her husband. Another room was for Andrew and Anna. There were 2 more rooms, one for an Asian boy and one for a girl. The room for the girl had been vacated by a girl from Beijing, and it was now reserved for Emily. Emily checked out her room, which was about 20 square meters, with a bed, desk, dressing table, sofa, and wardrobe. She was quite satisfied. There was also a large bathroom on the second floor, and everyone ate in the large living room on the first floor. After Henry handed Emily over to Mrs. Maria and made some arrangements, he left.
Emily, let us help you move your luggage into your room.
Anna further explained their situation. Andrew had been a formal employee at a factory in mainland China and had come to Australia through official channels. 2 years later, Anna, his fiancée, managed to join him in Australia. For them, studying was secondary, earning money was the priority.
We are fortunate to have met you, Emily, and we are from the same hometown. It's like meeting a fellow countryman, and we should help each other. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. We share the same landlord, so we see each other every day. Feel free to ask for help.
Later, Anna Brown spoke warmly to Emily Thompson.
It's fate that brought us together, Emily. We're even from the same hometown. When fellow townsfolk meet, it's always emotional. Andrew and I arrived here first, so we should take care of you. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask for help.
Big sister, Mr. Brown, it's truly a stroke of fate that I met you both on my first day in Sydney, Australia. It's like it was meant to be. Being alone in a foreign land, I will definitely need your help in many ways and might cause some trouble.
You're so young yet so sensible. I admire your courage for coming here alone. We're more than happy to help you.
Thank you both.
Emily Thompson was quite independent and quickly adapted to life in Sydney, thanks to the meticulous arrangements by Andrew Brown, Anna Brown, and the intermediary Henry Lee. Especially the landlady, Mrs. Maria, who treated her almost like her own daughter, showing her constant care and attention. She quickly adapted to the language as well, given her solid foundation in English. Within a few months, she had no trouble with everyday conversations. However, she often missed her hometown and family, her parents, grandparents, and her two sisters, Sophia and Lily Thompson. Frequent phone calls helped alleviate her homesickness. The real issue was her longing for her beloved, James Smith.
It's been over 3 months since we said goodbye at the airport. No calls, no messages. What could have happened to him?
Since their farewell at the airport, she hadn't heard from him in over 3 months. No calls, and Sophia's letters and phone calls never mentioned James's current situation. This beautiful yet strong-willed young woman, Emily Thompson, often found herself in tears at night, thinking about James. How did Emily Thompson and James Smith become a couple? Let's start with James Smith. James was 2 years older than Emily and a classmate in high school. He came from a prominent family. His father was the Deputy Minister of Culture in their city.
James, live a clear and honest life, and rely on yourself for everything. Maintain self-respect and independence. And remember, no flaunting our family status.
James was diligent in his studies and never mentioned his family's background. He was of average height, somewhat introverted, and always had a slight smile on his face. He wore glasses and often seemed deep in thought. He loved sports and was a dynamic presence on the basketball court. Despite his quiet demeanor, he was strong-willed, excelled academically, had a good character, and was an active participant in cultural activities. He was also the president of the student council. His academic performance was consistently top-notch.
I love watching basketball. That young man on the court, he's amazing.
Emily loved watching basketball and often saw this young man in action on the court, gradually developing feelings for him. Later, during a school cultural event, they both participated in a mixed choir, where James's powerful tenor voice impressed her even more. They also acted in a school play, portraying a pair of young lovers, which brought them closer together.
James, I think we should tell our parents about us.
Emily, my father has forbidden me from dating until I graduate from university. Please, let's wait.
Your father is just too conservative. What era are we in now? And he's still the head of the cultural department.
You can't say that. My father's concerns are entirely for my sake. He sees some students at school not focusing on their studies, instead spending their energy on romantic relationships or getting addicted to computer games. Their grades are a mess.
We're not just in love, we're passionately in love. Yet, our grades haven't dropped, but have improved.
What you said is true. But while we're in love, we consciously prioritize our studies and often help each other. Isn't that right?
You're right. Without your help and guidance, my grades might have been a mess sometimes.
We're an exception. It's because we have a high level of self-discipline in our studies.
But we're about to be separated. I'm going to Australia, and you're going to Europe. We'll be worlds apart. What should we do about that?
What should we do about it?
How about we tell our parents about this immediately?
James adjusted his glasses on his nose, thought for a while, and then spoke.
Not a good idea. It's better not to make it public.
I'm afraid that once you go to Europe, you'll grow up and your heart will grow distant. In university, there will be many beautiful girls, both Chinese and foreign. If one of them clings to you persistently, you might forget about me and leave me behind.
You're afraid I'll change my heart. But I'm not like the character James in Dream of the Red Chamber. My resolve and determination are very strong and will not waver.
Seeing James's confident and determined expression, Emily felt a bit reassured.
I believe you. People say that men are unreliable, but I hope you're an exception. By the way, in Dream of the Red Chamber, James was deceived by others, not that he changed his heart towards Emily. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the scenes of James crying at Emily's grave and becoming a monk.
Dear Emily, I will always keep you in my heart. No matter where I go, my feelings will never change.
As they spoke, they embraced and kissed passionately. However, at the airport, when James was seeing Emily off, he wanted to make their relationship public, but time was too tight, and they had to part reluctantly while still secretly in love. Now, Emily was in Australia, and James was surely in Europe. 3 months had passed, and there had been no news. How could she not be filled with doubts and worries? While Emily was deep in thought, anxiously waiting, her landlady handed her a letter from the mainland, a letter from her sister, Sophia. She hurriedly opened it and read it carefully, especially the part about James's studies in Europe, which reassured her. What made her particularly happy was that the letter included James's international phone number in Europe. She immediately dialed James's international number on her phone, her heart pounding. George and Martha Thompson were overjoyed, their faces beaming with happiness. After toasting the great-grandfather and great-grandmother, everyone sat down and began to eat, sampling the various dishes.
Here's to a happy new year, everyone. May we all have good health and prosperity.
Cheers to that. The atmosphere was lively and festive. After several rounds of toasts, they once again raised their glasses to the elderly couple.
Another toast to our wonderful great-grandparents. May they continue to inspire us with their love and wisdom.
Michael Thompson, an avid photographer, had his camera clicking away, capturing these lively and precious moments.
That's a good idea, but where can I find a part-time job?
Mrs. Maria, the landlady, asked what they were discussing.
What are you girls talking about?
Emily is looking for a part-time job in the evenings.
Well, Emily, how about working in my cafe?
That sounds doable. What would I be doing?
We sell pastries in the morning and serve coffee in the afternoon and evening. The girl who washes coffee cups in the evening is returning to her home country, so you can take over. It's just 2 hours each evening.
That sounds perfect. What's the hourly wage?
They agreed on the wage, and Emily started working at Mrs. Maria's cafe. During the day, she balanced her high school studies with piano lessons. Emily had already reached level 9 in piano back in her home country, so her foundation was solid. With further practice, she quickly improved and could play many world-famous pieces proficiently. Her teacher believed she had reached the level where she could perform publicly in bars and cafes. Emily worked at Mrs. Maria's cafe washing coffee cups for a few months. Later, she started playing the piano there in the evenings and sometimes at nearby bars. This way, Emily could cover her tuition, meals, and daily expenses on her own. Everything was going smoothly for Emily in Sydney, and she had integrated well into the society there. Meanwhile, back home, Emily's parents were concerned. One evening, her father, John, received a letter from Emily.
Our daughter is doing well. She writes home often and calls us, which puts our minds at ease.
Her letters and calls are too vague. She's been abroad for nearly 2 years and hasn't come home. I'm really worried.
Didn't she say everything is fine?
Fine, but how fine? She hasn't been home in almost 2 years. I'm really worried.
So, what do you plan to do?
I think we should go to Australia ourselves and see how she's doing in Sydney.
Seeing is believing.
Exactly, hearing is one thing, seeing is another.
I want to go to Australia too, but there are so many things to handle in our clothing factory. How can I leave?
You always think about the factory. Our daughter is important too. We only have one daughter. What if something happens?
Well,
if you don't go, I'll go by myself.
John, the director of a private clothing factory, then arranged for their passports and bought plane tickets to Australia. They boarded a flight to Sydney. Emily met them at the airport. At the arrival gate, the family reunited after a long separation, sharing endless stories of their time apart. John and Emily Johnson were traveling abroad for the first time. In Sydney, they were disoriented and couldn't speak the language, so they relied entirely on their daughter's arrangements. Emily's mother inspected her daughter's living conditions, school, and evening piano performances at bars and cafes. Seeing that everything was going smoothly, that Emily had grown taller and more beautiful, and that she had become a mature young woman capable of living independently, Emily's mother was finally at ease. John and Emily Johnson saw how busy their daughter was with her studies and part-time jobs, so they stayed in Sydney for only 3 days. Andrew and Anna drove them around to see the Sydney Opera House and a few other sights. Then, they flew back home. At the airport, mother and daughter found it hard to part, saying their tearful goodbyes. Parting is for the sake of the next reunion, and by then, Emily would have graduated, and it would be a joyful family reunion.